And next we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. You. We have a huge audience tonight, but are there any comments? I'm kidding. There's it's summertime, you can tell that. So there are no comments from the audience tonight. And then I need approval of the agenda, a motion to approve the agenda. I would like to request that we pull from the consent agenda, and I'll make this motion that we move 9.8 and 9.9, which are emergency approvals of policy, that we move those to action items as 11.8 and 11.9.
I second that.
I think it's important that there's library policy and a complaint policy, that I think it's important to state that we have reviewed those according to state law and everything.
Does that in conjunction with approval of the agenda?
Okay?
I move approval of the agenda as proposed, including moving 9.8, 9.9 for action as 11.8 and 11.9.
Okay, I will second that. Any questions, comments? Okay, we're ready for the vote, Stacy?
Can I have your name?
Pardon?
Amend the motion.
I'm sorry, yes.
That's fine, then I'll amend
Okay.
that for both.
Add to the agenda, to that item, or?
Waiting.
You're just waiting for me.
We're just waiting for Stacy to catch.
In general?
I know you like to think it's probably you, but this
Well.
time it's not.
Next time, I'll just kind of wait for the process to unfold.
You have 4 women here who will tell you if you're off.
No problem bossing you around.
And I'm one man, and I'll listen.
Oh yeah, Jason's here. It's why Jay
Right.
shows up.
Stacy, I'm on 4.2, is that where? That motion passes. So we'll move on to a reading of the district vision statement. Wes, would you read that for us?
Empowering all learners to embrace and be inspired to realize their potential.
Thank you. Moving on, do we have any conflicts of interest tonight, Dr. Schultz? Okay. And then presentation from our business financial director of financial services. I'll get that right yet. Stacy Van Beek will present our preliminary budget for the 2025-2026 school year.
Hey, thank you. My hope is that by giving a more thorough presentation now, then when we get closer to adopting our final budget, I can just kind of go over things that have changed from this and make that a little bit easier process. So some things I wanted to start out with. Numbers are still fluid at this point. We do not know all of our title grant amounts yet. The state is still determining that since they've taken over some of that from the Federal Department of Education. Our current budget, as the numbers read now, also assumes that our enrollment stays steady, so we'll know more as summer goes on. And then also I want to point out that we have a lot of new employees this year, and their benefit selections do play a huge part in, the amounts fluctuating. If we have someone that comes in and doesn't take insurance, the only thing that costs us is life insurance, which is $27 a year. If they take single health and dental, it's about $6,900 a year. And if they take family, it's almost $20,000 a year. So it really, 5 people taking family that we didn't expect is $100,000. So that's a big driving factor in some things that may change as we get a little further down the road. But this year, as numbers stand today, our budget total for all funds would be almost $61 million. Okay, just short of that. Last year, we were at almost $75,000, but we did have Fund 41 for capital projects, which was about $12.5 million, which will not happen since we don't have a building project going on. So that's the biggest difference there. And I've got the percentages all broken down. I won't read all those, but general fund is almost half of our budget this year. Last year it was about 40%. So a large chunk is coming from general fund expenditures and revenues. I will start with that general fund. Right now our budget is just short of $30 million, $29.7 million. We don't have any more ESSER claims or anything coming in, which that's music to my ears, and the people at the state too. And we were able to capture every single dollar from our ESSER claims, so we have received all those funds. We're done, so that's wonderful. And right now, as I have numbers in expenses versus revenues, we are less than $100,000 over budget for fund balance spending. And last year, we were at about $450,000. So we're pretty close right now, and we will continue to look at ways where we might be able to shave a little here or there, but some things you just can't take from. So doing my best to get that as close to balanced as possible. And some additional items that are included, as we know, got the 1.25% state aid increase. And then a difference from last year was our increased enrollment this current year. We had about 70 more students than the prior year. So that was a wonderful increase for us. And for expenses, we did 1.0% salary increase, had an 8% health insurance increase and a 4% dental insurance increase. The 2 staff additions that were brought forth and approved were a 4th grade section at Camelot, and then a reading interventionist reading intervention teacher, I should say, at BHS. Always have utility increases, so we account for that. And then, as we'll talk about a little bit later tonight with our renewal with Associated School Boards, we are tied to them through the end of calendar year 2026, so probably the end of the school year 26-27, because of the agreement that was entered into last spring. So we did have an increase in insurance as well, which we'll look at later tonight. And then we will reevaluate constantly and then present this for final adoption, whether it be the July meeting or the August meeting. Last year we did it in August, but if it's ready, I would love to get going with it in July. And these are some levies that I'll be asking you to approve at future meeting as well. These are all the recommendations for the max levies by the state. And then our student aid per student, our state aid per student is just under $7,500 this year. So that 1.25% increase there. And I would also point out that all the levies went down from last year. And so that's good on the local tax, how that all plays out. And then it's an increase in state aid, because that's where we get our general fund is taxes and state aid. So the state aid increases, I know it was just a 1.25% increase, but because the tax levy is lower, the state aid increases to make up the difference. So good locally. Put this together just so you could kind of see over the last 10 years our enrollment trends, and we, since 2020, have been on the rise. So love to see that, hoping to see that again this fall. And for my budgeting purposes at this point, we are just assuming we're going to stay steady, but we'll continue to monitor that and see. I mean, it could go up or down.
Do you I know we don't know for sure kindergarten numbers, but did our kindergarten coming in almost equal the seniors leaving?
I believe it was pretty
Pretty close,
close.
okay.
Yep, the last I saw, and I know there were still, latecomers that didn't do the screening, so it was really close. Okay, so moving into capital outlay, my approximate budget for capital outlay is just under $7.3 million for next year. We are hoping to increase the fund balance next year to help allow for some needed improvements in the high school and anywhere else that might need it. And this budget is about $2.2 million less than this current year because it does not include a big transfer to the capital projects. We had to transfer $2.6 million to finish off the elementary school project. So, and kind of my theme for this year for capital outlay is we're not going to buy stuff. We're not going to buy, we need to save. We need to save so that we can get some of these needed improvements done. So I have asked all the building principals, all the directors, if we do not need it, we really need to save. Like, we're not going to buy a bus this year. We're just going to try to not buy stuff. So that's the plan. In our certificate information for capital outlay, the initial Hillcrest Mid-Dairy project shows at the top there, the bond issuance, and what we thought we were going to have to issue. The final shows the bond issuance, the capital outlay, as you know, last year was higher. And then our total transfer, we had budgeted $2.6 million, we were $13,000 over, so it's very close. And I would point out too that if we get money from that Bailey Energy, those rebates that we're working on, that would go back into capital outlay to help offset that transfer. So I don't know, that could be $50,000, it could be $500,000. They're working to do that for us. So we're hoping for the higher end of that.
They have a projected date of when we,
I think November, I'm supposed to know. Yep, so this year, but we wouldn't get it until like the following spring, summer, but at least we would know it was coming. But they had told me that early on in the project, if they thought there was no chance of us getting it, that they would put a stop to it, and I've gotten billed 3 invoices. So I mean, they're working on it, and I have not heard otherwise. So I take that as a good sign. All right, special education. Next year, this budget, I would say, is probably going to be the one that changes the most. We're trying to be the most efficient we can to meet our learners' needs. And so this represents, just an increase in wage, benefits, student placements. Day school and transition program are still kind of in flux. Our numbers aren't really there, so we're trying to decide, what's the best offering there. Keep the IEP coordinators, and I would estimate that we're going to need to apply for another $1 million of extraordinary costs fund. Otherwise, we have to transfer from general fund. And on that note, this year I applied for $1.03 million in extraordinary cost, and we received about $980,000. So we were short about $50,000. And again, doing the best we can to try to, spend efficiently, and there's certain things you can't, salary, we got to pay all those out, but I'm hoping to make that transfer as small as possible from general fund to special ed, but we'll know more on that next month once the final numbers are in. Yeah, sure, absolutely,
be
ask
fine.
away.
So the 50,000, as I understand you right, it has to come out of somewhere. It comes out of the general
Correct,
fund.
it'll have to come out of general fund.
That's happened before, and it's going to happen again, based upon our special education
Yep.
program and approvals.
Yep. I do, here, I'll get to this here. This is just the levy, the 1.462 per thousand. That's the max, and we have to levy the max in order to get extraordinary cost. So that'll be our levy for SPED. But this is what I wanted to get to here. This has got some special education, like right in the middle, that extraordinary cost fund. There was almost $4.8 million, the 4.790 appropriated. Requested was over $5.1 million. And they didn't want to spend every penny, so they spent $4.454 million. So $700,000 got shorted over 20 districts. We came out okay. There were districts that were shorted $200,000 out of $350,000. So I feel pretty lucky that we ended up where we did. They did give priority to schools that applied using the high-cost student method, which is what we did, as opposed to a high-cost program. So that was.
And they pay us after all of our services have been rendered, basically.
Yep, we did get it in the May state aid, so we have got this and it's been deposited. But even into like the beginning of August, sometimes I'm getting bills for June services because those, facilities sometimes take a while to bill us. So I had to put together a spreadsheet, just basically guessing, these are gonna be our expenses for April, May, June, and as they come in, I fill it in and hope I'm on the good side of it, so maybe I can make up a little of that 50 somewhere, and we tried to guess, worst case scenario, but, yeah, and I don't want to deficit spend in our fund balance because our fund balance in special education is only $100,000. So we don't want to spend 50 of that and then we want to keep that fund balance where it's at, so.
Stacy, can you tell a little more about the top table?
Sure.
Especially on the level 1 disability, what those percentages mean, like the 10.62%?
Sure. So up at the top table, they categorize anyone that's in special education, a level 1 through 6. And then you can see where in fiscal year 2022, those are the amounts that they appropriated for those kids in special education state aid. We get a separate pot of state aid for special education. And so level 1, they take a percentage of our total, like ADM, so like our 3,300 kids or our 3,400 kids. And that's what they consider our level 1 disability. So that's where those percentages come from.
10.72%.
Yes, is a percentage of our enrollment. Yep. And then over in the far right, you can see that those amounts, they went up just a little bit from the previous year, but from 2024 to 2025, they went up, some of them went up considerably. But it's, well, some
Not
of
the
them went
reality
down.
of who we're serving. It's just a number they
Correct,
come
the
up with.
level 1 is, but the
Correct.
rest of them are, like, I get a report each year and it
Yep.
tells me these kids are level 2, these are level 3.
Yep.
Yep, so that's where that funding comes from.
Thank you.
Yep, and then the property tax levy just kind of shows, this is the local effort levy, and then the max is what we would have to levy to be able to apply for extraordinary cost fund. So, and then it gives those funding level definitions kind of down there at the bottom.
While
Can I
she's
just say something? Oh, go ahead.
transitioning, I did send you a listing of all of the school districts that applied for the extraordinary cost fund this year. So you can just look at that. I just emailed it to you when Stacy was talking, so.
And they have already kind of warned us, now, next year they anticipate more requests and there's less money. So,
Do they plan to, have you heard anything about upping the levy then?
Yes, well, I know that there are communications going. Dean Keeter did a really good job sending out extraordinary cost fund talking points. And so that is something that I will send. It's also a way for us to be a bit proactive with the legislature.
Yep.
So I will send that because they are starting to have those conversations. And as a district, we were the number 1 user by far. No, the second district they aren't close. And so part of what we've been really trying to do is figure out how we are keeping that in line. But sometimes people just see the number and they forget that ours are high-cost students, not high-cost program. And so I would be more nervous if it was a high-cost program, because that is why some didn't get it at all this year. If you're choosing to have more staff than maybe align with some of your IEPs, that sort of thing, that's considered more high-cost program, where we were able to document that it's high-cost students.
So when we look at the total number of students we have on IEPs or in special ed, that includes all the levels?
Yes.
And then when we look at 700 approximately students that we have on IEPs, and that's about 20%
20% is what
of
I've
our,
always
of our
done.
population.
yep, I've got it on our
She's got
next
it on.
slide.
How
here.
does that
Yep.
compare to other districts?
Very high.
A lot higher.
High. It's high.
Do you have any idea why, or is there just that?
We do a good job.
Well, Honestly,
That's what I
because we
think.
do offer the programming and
There's-
the
Yes.
the different the transition, the day school, I mean, we've got different programming that other schools don't have. It's a highly desirable district to come to.
I think anecdotally, I'm just going to speak, I don't have data on that, but if you have a child with special needs and you're living in a small community surrounding us, they might not be able to offer some of the things. So we're probably getting people moving to Brookings because of that level of service that we're able to provide.
So back to the child count, our official
Oh, we can
child
look at
count
that.
on December 1 was 691 students. That's an increase of 24 over the prior year, and that is right at 20%. Then April 2025, our official child count was 709. So we went up 18 students from December to April. And then again, I've got the extraordinary cost fund that we received there.
And then
when
you're not
they move
funded for
in
that.
after December 1st, they do not fall on our level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 categories. So we're just educating that, and we're not receiving the state aid for it.
And students move out of that too.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So you not,
Yep.
yeah, so they.
We
go-
might have had 30 come
Right.
in and 10 leave, so yeah.
Oh, yeah, it'd be interesting to see who leaves
Yeah.
too, just in future, just to know.
Sure, absolutely. Okay. So then that brings us to our 3 bond redemption funds. Fund 31 is Dakota Prairie, and the budget there is a little over $1.1 million. Fund 32 for Camelot is about $500,000. That one, we're close. 2 years from now, we'll be done with Camelot, and then we will not issue those or the taxes on that, so. And then Fund 33, Hillcrest and Madera, just getting started, so about $1.9 million on that one. A food service, again, Laura Swear and I are still working out details of this, but it basically just represents increases in salaries, slight meal prices, food costs, things like that. And they have a decent fund balance in food service, so we're not like too worried about the increased costs and transportation and things like that, but we'll certainly keep an eye on it.
Is the fund for unpaid meals high in the food service?
We had some pretty sizable donations, and I know she tries to take and pay off as many as possible. I don't know the exact amount, but I can certainly bring that
I
next time.
just was curious
Yeah.
if we're,
It was sizable, but we had, I mean, it was over $5,000 from Winks came in from a fundraiser they did, and, we're always getting little donations. And some families, when their kids graduate, they'll just donate to the Food for Thought instead of getting a check. So, yeah, that's much appreciated too, yeah. And then our last 2 funds, Enterprise and Self-Insurance. Enterprise is things like driver's ed, ACT prep, summer camps, things like that. Also our preschool program, our early childhood program. And then self-insurance, that it represents our 8% health insurance increase and 4% dental on the self-insurance fund. Any more questions?
any other questions?
This is a comment. Thank you. This is a very good presentation. That, again, I don't know, I thought you had a top last year, but I think you got there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I was just going to say one thing on the salary component that you were talking about on slide 5 was just that, can you just explain what the district covered from that 1% salary, and that we covered the benefit increase
Yes,
of the
absolutely.
percentage? I don't know if we just got that information out clearly, because it was more than a 1%
Yeah,
increase
the
for our
total package
employees.
was, I want to say the average was like 2.13%, right in there somewhere. It was over 2% total package increase. Yep. Because it was 1% salary, but then health insurance went up 8%. So, and I know it did for the employee part as well. But
Correct,
the
yep.
district took on 75% of that increase.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stacy, very nicely done. On then to board communications, performance and
Have the last 2 months left, and we need to just set a date and get to the office and look over those bills, but we're caught up until the last couple months.
facilities and construction, anything?
We haven't met since our last meeting, I believe, that we reported out on.
Did overtime last year, so
I know, I guess. We still have our science rooms that are still kind of in process, but we haven't had official meetings. I know Summer's working hard on a lot of that stuff, and she's had that
I
component.
do have a meeting with the architect, just to update him kind of where we are at and as far as just bringing in those specifications of what we want to have developed into the design process tomorrow morning. And so, and a lot of that work has been done, and they, just because of their schedule, we still had this summer to create the final designs.
And they're working on the boiler projects at the high school, and that's going well, and uncovering some things that we didn't know as any kind of renovation process happens, but I know they're in there and working hard too, so.
policy and governance, oh boy.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would like the board members to notice that there are several notifications given for 8 different policies, so that means you've got to pay careful attention to those. Take a look at those, what the existing policy says, because we will be working on those. We're having tonight the wellness policy, part-time enrollment, and then we have been meeting with the administration at the high school regarding cell phone policy. And we will be meeting again soon, and we want to have that in place as quickly as possible so that we can prepare students and family members for what that policy will look like when school starts. I don't know if we want to say more about that at this time. Do you
Well,
want to,
I
Teresa?
had sent a summary, and
from our
it had a
meeting.
video, and it had some information about possible pouch that we want to
case.
use. And so we meet again June 24th, I believe it is, and we'll, are expecting some things to come back that we
Yeah.
can get closer to getting this written up for the handbook and for policy and all of it.
I just would state my opinion is that just making sure our policy is research-based, and this is something that's been well documented in research, so you don't need to reinvent the wheel, that we came up with the first ideas that ever happened here,
Right.
so if we can
And
just.
so many of our faculty and, our teachers and our administrators have read that book, The Anxious Generation, and they are very supportive of moving forward with this policy as a result of reading that book, and that is definitely research-based, evidence-based. It is a great book, and it does open your eyes to the challenges that we face as a result of the increased use of technology, and in particular cell phones. So,
So maybe just parents kind of prepare yourself that
That's
this, a
exactly right.
policy will probably be coming before the school year and
and we
something new.
hope to like have some meetings with parents so that everybody's on board with what the policy is going to look like and
Okay.
how it will be enforced.
And then I'll just mention that the emergency approval for the public complaints and the library policy needed to be done because the law goes into effect July 1. So we need to, we'll talk about that when we get to the action item of it. Any questions on policy? Have Finance Committee, which we haven't met, but we just got our a preliminary budget, which Stacy presented. I don't know if you want to say anything else, Wes, about finance?
no.
Okay.
Went through and had the explanation on the positions that recommended relative to services in Camelot and the high school. So I think that was communicated by Dr. Summer. There was 2 positions that, one of them was basically restoring one that was cut a year ago when Dr. Soltz led the way to adjust the budget by nearly $1 million. And so here we are, a year later, sustaining that whole effort to the large extent. What was budget requirement last year to have a balanced budget and not dip into our fund balance in a disproportionate way. So I think the next fiscal year, we're able to project maintain the fund balance as we have now. And a fund balance is important for several reasons, but our tax revenues don't come in until the end of October into the November and through the property tax, and so you need to have a fund balance to pay the expenses for 4 months. Well, I have a count right?
Yep.
July, August, September, September and October, no. That's basically, right.
Thank you, Wes. Then do we have any reports from our ad hoc committees?
Just say on Wednesday, the Brookings Child Care Collaborative has a half-day, full-day strategic session, strategic planning session with all of the entities, and so that will be a good day for all of us to get together. And then the committee, under the committee that I'm on with the fundraising side of the collaborative, had 2 meetings in the past 2 weeks with some large employers in the Brookings community that went very well, and so hopefully we'll have things to report on that soon. Yep.
And is enrollment, when does enrollment get completed?
Summer can answer that.
We continue to have it open. The enrollment piece is a bit tricky in the sense of we have not extended past the 1 classroom in each building. And still with that fundraising scholarship component, if a student is unable to capture the child care assistance, the scholarship pieces, we don't have that built in to a high level. And so we're just still maintaining those first levels. But we have also had conversations with Head Start last week. Also, there's a lot of just movement with little guys this time of year, making sure everyone is getting registered somewhere. And so we keep the enrollment and registration open, but we have not moved past the 1 section in each, though that's our goal. We just want to make sure we do it strategically.
And
Could
I was unable to attend the last foundation board meeting. They changed the date, and then that was the date I could not attend. So I will report next time on that. And then Communities That Care continues to move forward. Right now, we're still in it's a grant that the community of Brookings has. And right now, they're still looking at the data and making it an evidence-based ideas in terms of what we're going to do moving forward. So that's ongoing, and it will be ongoing for quite some time. Both Summer and I are involved with that.
I'd like to clarify my statement before. Fund balance, I'm talking about the June 30th fund balance, to maintain that and not dip into it to any great extent during the course of the budget year, so we have a maintenance of fund balance for our fiscal responsibility.
Any other ad hoc committee reports? Okay, then we'll move to general board comments. Anybody?
Graduation, yeah. Wes and Deb and I were at graduation, and that's always exciting, and feel the pride from the parents and the music selection.
I watched sitting on a heating pad. I was having back issues. But yeah, it was a very nice ceremony. Even watching online, you could feel the energy that was there. And I just felt like for any grandparents or relatives who can't get to Brookings, what a nice service to be able to watch online. So any other general comments? I have one, and it's the group Lisa Bahi leads the environmental something or other, and they're on their way to Canada, so I just want to say best wishes. I'd also mention, I'm glad our administrators it's summer, they don't have to we don't have to, not that we don't have to read those, but that, they're getting a bit of a break anyway, to not have to be going full force with all of that. I think that's all I have.
I would just say, adding to what you said, Teresa, I'm just amazed. Every week in the paper, it appears that there's some team in our school district, either the middle school or the high school, that's been very successful in moving on to national competition. So just so proud of all those teachers, advisors, and students that are involved in those.
I guess I'll mention one other thing. During negotiations, we had talked about having a study session, and I think that's been set up for June 16th. And Deb and I are the ones attending. We didn't want to make everybody, because then it would have to be published and all of that. But I would put out there that if anyone if one of you wants to go instead of me, being this is impacting, I mean, with my coming off my term, just let me know. I will gladly let somebody else go. But it's the afternoon of June 16th.
And remind what are we studying?
We are studying how to transfer, when a position opens and the transfer, and how does it get posted and how does all of that work?
Page kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. So if you have comments on that, please get it to Deborah by next Monday, and, yeah, next Monday, and we'll bring those ideas. Laura is planning to have kind of, what does the board think is working well? What's not working well? What does BEA think is working well and not working well? And that'll be our starting point to come up with a better language for that issue.
I forgot to mention, it was fun to see the day that the 5K happened. To see the teachers running and biking and walking, and it didn't seem like where you went in town that afternoon. Like, we cheered some of them down Orchard, and then we went and they were over on 8th Street, and so it was really good to see just however they were. Everywhere you went, you were walking, biking, running, so for the teachers that do that, I think it's good, kind of just team building and a good way to end.
Yeah, and later we'll have our donated items, which was a very nice set
List,
of
yep,
that.
yep.
Anything else? We'll move on then to our superintendent report, so I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Schultz.
All right. I have a few things on here of interest. The first is that we were able to utilize some carryover Title II dollars and did purchase a partnership agreement with Smart Social. That was the organization that, if you remember this spring when Mr. Thomas and I we co-hosted the social media event. We had great feedback, and this is an organization, they do a lot more than we are contracting with them for, but it was in with our budget of those carryover dollars that needed to be utilized, and it really fits that need of the education piece for staff, for parents, for students on smart social use. Really, it's the number of resources and the number of educational opportunities through this that we did purchase, it's never ending. It's almost hard as a parent to look at them going, how do you even, just stay ahead at all? And so we don't officially start with that partnership until July 1, but we have access to things. So we will send out, my expectation is maybe once a week, every other week, our communications team has to make some decisions on that, but we will be consistently for the next school year, sending out things, just information that parents can read if they want. It'll be, again, a plethora, so it'll be a matter of selecting the things that parents want, and also a place for them to go where there's lists of options for them to select, whether it be video games, whether it be motivation, whether it be understanding apps that are out there. It used to be that we would bring in experts or have, social media for dummies night and bring parents in, and you'd get 20 parents there. Well, now parents have access to this information all year, and we can just hit so much more on that education piece. There's two that are this week, and I just put these on just as a way to just point out, again, there's constant, even live events, and because we are a partner, it does allow our school community to interact in the live events. They're not at great times next Tuesday and Thursday, but that one is on 7 steps to ignite your teen's motivation this summer. I think all of our kids at times can get trapped into that piece of the social media and the technology, and I kind of briefed it, and it looks like some really good starting discussion ideas for parents too. So the great thing is if you can't log on and be live, then we have access to all of these. And like I said, there's so many already, dozens that after July 1 we can share with parents. So I just wanted to point that out. There was a comprehensive property task force was developed in the spring legislative session. That group met on May 30th. I provided just a brief summary. I do think it's a task force that all education school districts are going to want to stay pretty committed to following and maybe ensuring that all the information that is being provided and talked about also is, I just really want to stay unbiased, but they're looking at making significant changes potentially to the school funding formula, and that's just something we have to, as a school board and administrators, we have to pay close attention to that. So I just wanted to give you those original notes. This is the next piece under a great place to collaborate. I've been kind of waiting to share this. When I had presented at the Economic Development Chamber event this spring, I talked about the fact that we were renovating our science areas, and we were also, I said, my dream, my goal in that renovation is to also have a higher level working lab for our staff and students to utilize. We have some constraints in our facility to add that in, but nonetheless, we have students who go off-site to do their research, say, in some of our science and engineering fair students. We also have teachers, teachers at the high school level that could do more with students on a smaller level if they had that opportunity. And so I had said, so if anyone would be interested in sponsoring a lab, let me know. And that conversation has sparked some amazing conversations with those partners that I put on there. This is very preliminary work, and that's why I really, it's hard to share our talking points because we are all, whether it's the research park, whether it's SDSU, whether it's BioWorks, we all have boards, we all have people that make, collaborating not as easy as just us when we get in a room, but I tell you what, this is a very big commitment on behalf of all the individuals that have started this discussion to do two things: not only provide more opportunities to bring in that world of science and research-based opportunities for our students, but also to change that landscape in South Dakota, in Brookings specifically. If you look at the numbers on the document I shared with you, we have it with SDSU here in Research Park. We have to build that pipeline, that workforce pipeline, and so we have the pipeline with our students. And I would like it to be that if a family feels that a strong science curriculum is important to them, that they go, well, we need to look at Brookings then. That is what we're trying to build. And it's very possible that there could be some opportunities for us to have a working lab option potentially out at Research Park. That's preliminary, but the fact that these individuals in town are saying, we want to work with the school district, it's just been really fun to start those conversations. So. Under a great place to learn, Jay did an awesome article. Our staff was so appreciative of it because this rethinking literacy, and he put that on there, rethinking reading, it is not for the faint of heart. It's a lot of work, and our K-12 staff, administrators, classified, certified staff, they have really committed themselves to it. And so to see that that is important to others also was just really neat. They were really appreciative of it. We do have, it goes under then a great place to work. We do have that position, that strategic reading interventionist at the high school level, that is still open. And that's a pretty specialized position. We know that. Ironically, a good friend of mine who helped open a lot of these doors to me said, Summer, this is my dream job. This is working with my Avery. And her Avery was a student with dyslexia that I had in high school that made me really, again, see things sometimes differently. But we have found resources. This work is happening in other states. It's not necessarily happening here, but if we're able to hire the person, we have a strong foundation of what would take place. And we are working on that, but we do need to find that special person. And I put 2 administrative updates. Shannon Smith, as a lot of people know, will begin July 1, taking over as our special service director. And in the personnel report, you may have seen, and after the board meeting, we will present it to the public. Kate Mogart has been offered the Hillcrest Elementary principal position. That is what I have.
Thank you, Dr. Schultz. Any questions or comments? Right, we will.
I'd like to share with the board that I've talked to Stacy and I plan to meet with her to probably frame some of our budget numbers consistent with what we saw earlier. So we have maybe prepare a document for the Associate School Board or the Legislative Committee of just where we spend our money. That, you know, I think what Stacy had is good, but maybe we need a little more of a deep down into some of the, in our increases. We're talking insurance up 11%. Not the health insurance, but the other.
Yep.
There are things that we can communicate that give them the tools, legislators, the tools to evaluate just what is in our budgets, because, you know, it's just one number. It's a lot of subsets that we need to work hard, give some effort to provide that to legislators, and then first of all to our local
Simple
legislators, and then to people that they feel we should share with the legislative committee referenced earlier.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's all important so that we provide something meaningful to this committee about, you know, we're one of the biggest school districts
And I
in the
think
state.
even when Stacy was sharing what's funded locally and what's not, like those kind of items, just to showcase what the local community is a part of and what is, you know.
Yeah, you know, not to take away anything from all the local effort, but the state of South Dakota puts in a good share of our
Absolutely.
resources, and but we need to have people understand that our local effort is no small consequence to our total budget. And if we have to start tinkling with our local effort, we've got some real tough days ahead budgetarily.
Yep.
Summer, do you know, does that task force on the property tax have any hearings or take any comments from people, or do they just meet amongst themselves?
I don't know.
I think they'll end up with some kind of
It's on the legislative
testimony or input.
website. You can see all the members and contact them on there too.
Because I think this is something that we need to get to them, so that as they're looking at,
We would work through the Associated School Board so that we're from other districts as well.
however we get this information, we need to get it, I think, to that committee through whatever means would be good.
Casey, I'll call you.
Teresa, I want to add one more thing.
Okay.
Don't call me, I'll call you.
You don't call me, I'll call you. Call Stacy, yes, she's, I didn't touch base, and you probably saw this, but I have added a work-based learning component to Zach Thomas's contract. We worked to find, with his daily rate of pay, I really feel it's important for our district to have one individual that I work with, that others in the community work with, as we're creating these work-based learning opportunities. With our report card and just with what we believe in our strategic plan, those workforce partnerships, they are important. And there's 5 areas that, beginning 26, 27, school districts also receive a grade on. And there's 5 different capstone experience options for students at Brookings. We only are utilizing 2 of them. And I really want to see us improve in this area. And these are things such as, we have the CTE internships, but we also have teachers overseeing that, and I'd like that person back overseeing it. The CDA that I brought in, now with the Educator Rising, there's some significant opportunities for those students to also receive credits and paraprofessional opportunities in classrooms. This science thing that I was just sharing, I really want to work with one person. I don't want to leave it to chance. And so I really feel that with Zach's ability to that he has those connections. I work with him very well. I, again, just needed one person. And adding the days to his contract, because he has the lesser amount of days with his just assistant principal, made the most sense, although it will continue, through the school year. So I wanted to explain where that came from. And I've started some great things, but I really need to be able to turn them over and know that they're going to keep going. And so Zach knows now that I'm just going to be hounding him all the time, but he's going to be great to be able to put in those positions to make sure that our kids are not just in those opportunities, they're receiving the credit the state allows them to receive because they're in those, and that they meet the criteria we want, so.
Thank you, Summer. So moving on to our policies tonight, we have a notification of policy BD, which involves school board meetings. And it's really gives a criteria for if anyone is videoing or audio taping the meeting, that has to be announced at the meeting so that anybody attending knows that that's happening. So that's that policy. So watch for that to come out with the first reading. Pardon me?
Attach them when we make notice, but would you like them to be?
I just had some people reaching out about some of these, and I went to our website and tried to find,
Well, yeah,
they're not,
some of them are new
right,
besides.
so when will we?
For the first reading. So
When?
policy
Okay.
meets June 24th.
June 24th,
And then
got
that's
it.
when
Yep.
we can, maybe I'll include in the summary that, so you can read them in time before the board meeting. Okay.
I agree, and I don't, it's hard because if there's a model policy that we're working off of, we don't want it to come across as that's the policy, but yet it's very, I did the same thing knowing, I was like, I wanted to take a look on, so I'm sure people in the community do too.
But to this long list of notifications, a lot of those have come because of state law changes. So this is one of those. And we had a policy for school board meetings, but this has some new criteria that we have to add.
So that one, we could have linked our current one though, even though it's
Well, it
just
should be
notification.
online, under our board policies on our school board website. You could find it. Okay. So then the next one is DFD gate receipts. This is a new policy from state law, and it says you must have to allow cash at your gate for school events. And it also has some criteria about information that can be handed out that's not really related to the event, but that might be getting handed out. So watch for that one. Policy ECABB is the bathrooms, and that is a new policy. It gives definitions of what a female and a male are, and what a restroom is, and what a multi-changing room is, and so on. And it's according to the laws that passed. I have a question on that, and I guess it will come to policy committee, but how does that policy apply when someone is visiting for an event or something? I mean, if someone looks,
It is statewide, from the way I understand it.
I know, but let's say there's someone at the basketball game, and it's not a student, it's someone coming, a spectator, and they look like a female and they go in the female restroom. Or they look like a male and they go in the male restroom. How do we know how they compare to the definitions in this policy for male and female?
Right.
So that's
I think it's also something that, I don't have the answer to that by any means, but I hope or I anticipate that if this is going to be a statewide law, that there will be regulations that go, or suggestions, but I have not seen them.
yeah. So that's that one. And the next one is GCDBC, criminal background checks. Deb, do you want to speak to that one?
We had worked on that one, and we had some questions, because in the past, we'd had anyone that came into the school district for volunteering purposes or whatever had to have a background check. And then it sounded like the law had changed. Now we're back to where we were before. So we just received 2 new policies from Associated School Boards regarding this. And so we'll be looking at those at our next one, too.
And one is for staff, and then one is for volunteers.
volunteers.
So watch for those. I went offline,
Of special, yeah.
so I need help, Jason. I just go away, or what?
Oh, I think you missed the facilities capitalization program.
Yeah, I can't go anywhere, so. But the next policy is IGBA for special ed services. Am I following this
You missed
correctly?
FC, Teresa.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Facilities. That's why I think you got
FC
off.
facilities capitalization. Let me get back. And that is also from a new state law that we are going to be hearing more about. And it is what we're meeting on July 1st, a special board meeting. We'll talk about that later, but it's the capital outlay fund levy that is changed from a new state law. Go to special ed is next. IGBA, special ed services. And that is also a new policy about meeting the needs of the children from birth to 21 who have disabilities, what we have to do to meet their needs. Then we have JEA, policy JEA has to do with attendance ages. A student may withdraw from school at age 17. And then there's another one, JEG, the next one, which is for exempt attendance. If you're 16, you can leave school if you're in they don't call it GED anymore, it's a high school equivalency testing program. Then that brings us to the second reading of revisions to the wellness policy. Any comments or questions on that?
Great, thanks for pulling that committee together. I just wondered if obviously, Dr. Schultz, I'd assume the principals are aware, but there might be some schedule changes due to some of the activity breaks every 60 minutes of active instruction and some of those pieces. And then just also wondered about, the district wellness committee, the wellness committee, just how those things are going to operate. And yes, Stacy was on that committee. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
No, that's
thank you.
fine. So once this is approved and after tonight, then that was kind of my plan, was to kind of push things out to principals. These are going to be the expectations of having the building level committee, a representative on the district committee, forming that district committee with people that aren't just staff. I mean, we're going to have community members and a
Right.
student and things like that. And then working with Michelle and Tana also to, okay, how can we work these in? Because ideally, the goal is to meet quarterly,
Right.
each of those. And there's not enough minutes in the day for all the meetings we need to,
Correct,
so
yeah.
we're do the best we can. We're striving to get to this. It may be a work in
Right.
progress.
The other comment I guess I just had for the committee as a parent with kids in two different schools, and I think maybe some of the problems from the past policy were that then every principal interprets things a little different and then communicates that out. So I didn't know, based on the snack guidelines and the time that they're going to be outside and that they can't miss recess if they have late work to make up, those types of things, if that could be communicated maybe in one document
Sure.
from the
So
wellness
they're all
committee,
consistent.
instead of every school having their own version of, well, that kid can stay in from recess, but you can't do that at this school. I'm seeing a lot of those types of things happen, so.
I would think
But
that would
thank
be
you,
easier for the
this looks great.
administrators too, like if this is, then they don't have to interpret
Yep.
it. This
Yep.
is how it is.
Yeah,
So.
yep. So, and I think that's great. The 60 minutes is awesome, so thank you.
Any other comments on the wellness policy? And we'll move on to policy JF, part-time enrollment. I am blank on what that one.
Well, essentially, we're just changing, it says learners are required to earn, the current policy said earn 22
Oh, I see.
credits, but we changed it to the respective graduation requirement because those credits change
Keep changing.
quite frequently from the Department of Education. So if we have this in our policy, we don't have to change it every time the state changes the number of credits, or if we decide to as a district. So that's what that one is.
Any questions? All right. Moving on, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda, 9.1 through 9.7.
And a second, please?
Second.
And a second from Terry. Any comments?
I would say 9.7 inclusive.
Inclusive, yes.
I did just want to point out that on the financial reports, I did include an extra document this month that had July 1 debt payments. We have 4 debt payments that are due before our next board meeting, but need to be paid out of the next fiscal year. So on July 1, I need to cut those. They will appear on the July board list, but I need your approval, to pay them ahead of time because it'll be too late at the board meeting. Those will be overdue. So I just wanted that to make sure that people saw that. It's a little over $4 million, but each of those funds does have appropriate funding to pay those now.
Discussion? You ready for the vote, Stacy? Passes. Then we have a motion, I need a motion to approve the donated items.
I so move.
Somebody,
I was just asking when we're doing the emergency ones.
I will second that. And I'll just mention, it's quite, I feel a lot of support from our community in this. And I am going to read these off because I think it's very important. So the BHS Health and,
It's a Health Occupation Student Association.
Timely Transport donated $3,000, and also the Brookings Health System donated $1,000. The Kavam family donated to Mr. Johnson's classroom. And then the wellness sponsors in different varying amounts, but very thankful. Meyer Orthodontics, Brookings Chiropractic Center, Cubbies, Bisson Dental, Gold Medal Gymnastics, Brookings Dental Clinic, Prairie Skies Family Dentistry, Sodak Labs, Brookings Family Dentistry, First Interstate Bank, M&T Fire and Safety, Scooters, Ohms Appliance Center, Dakota Land Design, Brookings Dumpster Service, Central Bank, Elevate Drone Services, Edward Jones, Jeff Fish Office, and Buffalo Wild Wings. So what a grand bunch that supported our wellness 5K this year.
And the total is $6,905.
Yes, very, very generous, and I'm very thankful for that. Any other comments or questions? Stacy, we're ready for that vote. Motion passes. Next, we have, lost my, the project search handbook. A motion to approve the project
moved.
search handbook. So moved by Kelly,
Yep. Second.
seconded by Terry. Any comments or questions? I had one comment on that. If a cell phone policy gets completed and approved, how does that affect our project search students? And maybe we can decide that later. It was just something that,
Wouldn't it just be applicable to the high school? Like while at the high school?
I would, I'm just guessing, and so this is just me thinking out loud, but with those project search students, many of them then are placed in businesses and that have rules they have to follow when they're there. So I would assume that regardless, they follow that rule. And really it comes down to then that employer's discretion of what is appropriate in a work setting. So I don't know if it would need to transfer, but we could certainly consider it.
I just thought, are they ever in our school building?
No,
So that's kind of a whole different.
they had been, they would have already.
Right.
I visited that site a couple times at SDSU, so they have a lot of mentorship from the leaders there, and I don't see it being an issue
Okay.
applying there.
So I don't have any other questions. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we're ready for the vote, Stacy? Passes. Next, we have approval of a 2-year extension of Dr. Schultz's superintendent contract. Need a motion for that, please?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
And seconded. Any comments? I just appreciate that
Yeah.
she's sticking with us.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for the vote, Stacy?
If we all voted against you all of a sudden there, huh? No, I'm just kidding.
That motion passes.
Well,
I would mention, it was the same 1% increase as all of our staff took for that, so. Okay, approval of the Brookings School District Comprehensive Plan for Special Education. We need a motion to approve that.
I move approval.
Second.
Any comments on that? This is something that happens every year. Standard to have the plan. Ready for the vote, Stacy? That motion passes. 11.5, approve the Medicaid administrative agreement between the Brookings School District and Southeast Area Cooperative.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second?
Comments on that? Done this in the past, kind of standard, so.
Second, who made the motion again?
I did.
Kelly?
that's what we were.
Mine isn't pulling up that we're all voting.
Jay, are you getting finger cramps there or something, or what?
It's not advancing. Should I?
I showed up and now I show Teresa did it.
There we go.
There we go.
Jason has to just come and stand by it and,
The superpower of the tech guy.
okay, the next one is the approval to renew the policies with the Associated School Board Protective Trust. I would move approval of that.
Second.
And a second. I asked Stacy to just maybe mention this because it was a significant increase, and I don't, she did hand out a handout showing the different premiums.
So as I mentioned in my budget presentation, we are locked in with Associated School Boards Protective Trust through the end of the calendar year of 2026. And so that was an agreement that was entered into last spring, so a little over a year ago. And then you can see the rates that we paid for liability and property and crime and auto for last year. It was about $841,000. And then this year, liability is up to $191,624. And when I called to try to get the breakdown, a lot of people are new in the office right now, and the person who does the breakdown is out until Wednesday, so they couldn't give me the breakdown, but that $741,682 does include property, crime, and auto. So our complete renewal is $933,306. When I went to the meeting back in March in Chamberlain, they said to expect between an 8 and 12% increase. It does vary from district to district, and we got at 11, so on the higher end of that. And we have not had any property claims, we have not really had any claims other than liability, like people getting hurt falling over something or whatever the case, or student accident type things. So those are the only claims that I have submitted this year. So, but that's, with personal insurance too, you see it. So, but that's what our renewal is for this year, and I just hope next year it's on the lower end. Yeah.
Are there other places you can go to get insurance through your?
There's very few places that insure schools, and I started to look into them over the winter, but then I found out we were locked in, and so people kind of backed off because there's nothing we can do for pretty much 2 years. So, but no, we'll definitely explore options when it's time.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we're ready for the vote then, Stacy? That motion passes. 11.7, approval to schedule a special school board meeting for Tuesday, July 1st at 9 a.m. I would so move.
I second that.
I understand Kelly will,
I'll either call or Zoom or whatever is easiest.
right, and we appreciate that.
Yep.
That you're out of town, but that you'll do that, so, okay, ready for the vote, Stacy? That motion passes. So then we'll move to 11.8, which is an emergency approval of the library, or of policy KLB, public complaints about the curriculum of instructional materials. I would move approval. Is there a second, please?
Second that.
Okay, and the comments we have to make on that are, we've kind of gone back and forth with this one some, and have a new form to fill out.
And that was attached.
That was attached as well. And it is basically that changed, we have to have a committee, and we've changed that from 3 adult citizens to 1. There are different, like on library materials, if there's if it's used in the classroom, that's going to be different than if it's just on the shelf for checkout. And we still have the form parents can fill out if they don't want their child to access library materials in that way. And then we also had that the committee will review just one complaint at a time, because it involves reading all of the material and researching some of the other agencies that give recommendations for those materials and such. And and while something's in the process of being reviewed, the item is still available for students.
Yep, until decision is made.
And again, if it's, oh, well, so that's it. Any questions or?
You said parent, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a parent, correct?
Right. Well, the
Adult citizen.
parents are the ones who fill out the form for the library materials they don't want their student to have access to.
Right.
But
okay.
otherwise, the complaints could be from.
Yes. Oh, that makes no sense, but yes.
And this will be
And-
online, and we believe we followed the criteria that was in the law that said
Yep.
how we had to do things. Questions or comments? Hey, Stacy, we're ready for that vote. And it's an emergency because it has to be on book by July 1, and we're not meeting till before that.
And it's my initials, Kelly Lynn Books. For the book policy. Trying to bring it light. You don't have, oh, you debate policy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Sorry, I just got so excited about my initials.
And then we're up to 11.9,
9.
which will be the library materials selection and adoption. That,
I so move.
and a second.
Second?
Second. Again, this is a policy we've been adjusting.
Yep.
Spent a lot of time on it last
Thank you to the
year.
policy committee. Not
And
easy.
basically what we had to add to this one was, help me, Deb.
Well,
for sure the
we added
gifts.
about gifts, and then we also added, if a material is challenged, it will be continued to be used during the reconsideration process unless the superintendent or school board suspends its use. And decisions by the superintendent or school board on reconsidered materials will be in binding for 1 calendar year before new requests can be reconsidered. And at that time, again, it may entertain a request from a parent, student, guardian, to reinstate materials that have been previously banned or censored. So that's what was added to the policy. We worked on that policy significantly a year ago, and then these are 2 items that we had to add in regards to updates from the law.
And that's why the complaint policy kind of goes along with this, because this policy
Correct.
says that's what you use to. Other questions or comments? Right, we're ready for that vote, Stacy? Great. Before I take a motion for executive session, I just want to mention, this is my last meeting where we're all together in the same room.
Well, next meeting.
Because in July, I will be out of town. My daughter's graduating with her master's degree, and so we'll be at that, and I will be asking Deb to fill in as presiding over the first portion of that meeting.
And Madam Chairman, I have a point of privilege. I just want to thank you for your leadership. You have done an outstanding job, and you always ask the right questions to make sure that you keep us on task and keep us focused on what we need to be thinking about. And I think all of us agree that as long as we do what's best for kids, that's why we're here. And sometimes we need to be reminded of that when we get caught up in financial obligations and things like that. So just kudos to you, Teresa. We have appreciated you so much and the leadership that you have given to the board, not just during this term, but you also served on the board in the past and for those terms as well. So thank you so much. Yeah.
And it is appropriate for me to give some thank yous. I want to thank the district office staff. They've always been helpful when I've gone in. Not to slight anyone else, but Amanda has been my email pen pal, especially as the president. So I want to say that. And just looking back over my 3 years, the first year we set up those pillars. We were doing the strategic plan. And so I just look back at a great place to learn, and we've emphasized some of that tonight, from early childhood to Bobcat Plains, setting up the program Summer was just talking about, and with the reading and all of that. I think we have really worked toward making this a great place to learn, and like Deb just mentioned, the kids are the bottom line. We've made it a great place to work. I think we've made great strides between the board and the teachers and the staff, gaining some trust. I think that's very, very important. And, like they say, when teachers love teaching, children love learning. So that's an important thing to go on. The collaboration, the early childhood is a prime example, but tonight we had some more with the STEM people interested in helping to set up the labs. And I think, again, responsible district, we've worked hard on our policies to be sure we're responsible with all the state laws and with our budgeting and our finances. I just feel like those pillars, they've really guided us, and I like that. And of course, a big thank you to Dr. Schultz and her admin team. They're what leads us through those pillars and keeps us moving in the right direction. But I feel very fortunate that I've got to be with the same board the whole 3 years. And I think that says something about our community supporting and trusting us. And so I really found this term rewarding. And of course, I thank all of you as well. And I know you'll welcome Cassie Juba and bring her into the team. But just best wishes to all of you. So, yeah.
Thank you. Can I make a comment before you move on?
Okay.
But no, just thank you so much, Teresa. I have it on my calendar, because I was planning on bringing you some flowers and a card so you could sit up there with all the fun next meeting. I didn't know you were going to be gone. So sorry about, she won't be here on July 1st.
I'll be here on July 1st, but
Oh,
not the
first meeting, then
17th.
I'm gone that meeting.
Kelly's
Okay,
not
so.
there, so this is,
Okay, at the last meeting, okay. But anyway, it's just been wonderful to work with
Thank
you.
you.
And something I've been thinking about a lot as we bring in a new board member too, and it's something I think that the public doesn't think about is like a board dynamic. And I think this board has a fantastic dynamic, and that there is a lot of disagreement between all of us in lots of different ways and strategies and idea, and respectfully. And we have just gone through some hard things together, and you have always been so supportive. And I remember doing phone tag almost every single day during some of those times, and just always responsive and respectful and so caring for our district. So thank you for your service and everything you've done for the Brookings School District.
we went through some challenging times, and we went through some very painful situations, but we've also had some very joyful times. So,
things, yes.
Like I said, it's just been very rewarding, no
Yes.
matter what, and I appreciate the way we've respected each other for our strengths and for our weaknesses.
Yes,
right? So,
absolutely.
very good.
You came in at a tough time when we just had come out of the pandemic era. And so you stepped right up to the plate.
Yep.
And of course, I want to thank you because this is the second 3-year cycle you've had.
You too.
Survivor
We
Award.
served together back in the day, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah.
Won't say how long ago, but in the day, huh?
So I wanted
Thank
to
you.
be sure I had said that publicly
Yeah,
before.
thank you, Teresa.
So then we need a motion to go into executive session. And I will
Okay.
second that.
Go ahead, Teresa.
I will second that. and there will be no action afterwards, so. Okay, we're ready for that vote, Stacy?
Thanks, Jay.
Whatever I said